There are so many things iconic and influential about Dragon Ball, and one of those categories is the attacks. The Kamehameha alone is an icon. But some of the most memorable attacks from the series are those moves that close out a big villain fight or shockingly finish off an ally, the finishing moves, so to speak. But more often than not, despite the major spectacle they formed, these moves ultimately don't finish off their foe, or even worse, the receiver is almost unharmed afterwards. So for this video, we want to find the coolest, most iconic intended finishing moves in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z that didn't quite work out in the end. They were likely a good fake out with a dust cloud, but they really just existed to look cool and probably create a good narrative for the story. And to help me catalog the sheer amount of false finishers, I have Sam from Dungeon Dive Bar here.
My finishing move is saying bye everybody.
Now let's settle the score with the top 10 failed finishing moves in Dragon Ball. Number 10, Chaozu's Self-Destruct. This was Chaozu's biggest moment in the series, and it unfortunately defines his usual role. When Nappa was decimating the Z Warriors before Goku could arrive, it took a bit before everyone was in sync, so they were just scattering with their own attacks. When it seemed like no one else could win, Chaozu thought the best plan of action was to gather all his ki and blow up while latching onto Nappa, since that's gotta do a lot of damage, right? And Chaozu takes a rough beating trying to do this, just being smashed against rock formations. But for the finish, right before Nappa reaches the rocks that are sharper than the other rocks, the self-destruct goes off, and we get a dramatic shot of the explosion with no bodies visible at first. And then Nappa appears from the dust alone with mildly damaged armor. He doesn't even indicate he had to brace himself or that he took any damage. And the build-up was great, Chaozu giving a noble speech, Tien putting all of his emotion into trying to get his friend to stop, even Piccolo, who is not fully converted to good yet, acknowledging that Chaozu was a hero before the Nappa reveal. That's probably my favorite part, Piccolo giving props to this fighter he never even got to meet.
Self-destructs in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z have notoriously been bad. There are two successful self-destructs in the entirety of Dragon Ball, and Z and Super and GT. The Cyberman killing Yamcha, and Cell unintentionally blowing up Goku, King, Kai, Bubbles, and Gregory. That's it. Those are the only successes. Every other time, it just utterly failed. And then the person's usually dead as a result of it, and then the other person goes, ow, that hurt. Actually, there was one time Vegeta used Final Explosion, and Vegeta didn't even die from it.
But the ultimate failure of this attack is sadly a trend for Chaozu. He always gets knocked out before the final boss of the arc. Think about it. In the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai, he lost in the quarterfinals to Krillin, didn't even get a chance to face the top student from the rival school. But that's okay, Krillin was still formidable and technically his rival. Then the King Piccolo arc. He gets killed by old Piccolo Daimao when he tries to steal Piccolo's wish. But once again, that's okay, it was a noble attempt to save the world. After that was the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai, where he gets knocked out off-screen in the preliminaries by Tao, who's then immediately defeated in the quarterfinals by Tien, and Chaozu just returns right before the arc ends as a footnote showing he's okay.
Like you said, Chaozu is quite literally a satellite character to Tien. He shows up whenever Tien's on screen, does the little telekinesis, is magical, and magic is still something very rare to be used in combat on the hero side. It's always energy or a punch. But like freezing time, telekinesis, all that stuff, only Master Roshi and Chaozu really use that. Piccolo doesn't use magic in combat. He uses it for utilities like clothes or a sword, and then he kind of forgot he could do that. Poor Chaozu. He had one showing after Dragon Ball, and it ended in his death. He wasn't even invited to the Tournament of Power. And we don't need to put this in, but I just want to share this with you. What the official name of when Chaozu self-destructed was. Farewell, Mr. Tien. Sayonara, Tien-san. Even Chaozu's final attack involves Tien.
So Chaozu self-destructing with no payoff is an unfortunate end for the character, since after this, he never fights again or even shows up when it's not just a group gathering. The only fight he technically has is against the Ginyu Force on King Kai's planet, which was anime filler, so if you just read the manga or watched Kai, you would not have seen Chaozu actively participate after Nappa. And if it sounds like we're being too harsh on Chaozu, we don't mean to be. We just wish he got to make more of an impact. A psychic fighter in a world of more physical fighters is intriguing, so it just gets chalked up to being overpowered by other characters. Number 9, the Dodonpa, or Dodonray. The Dodonpa is the signature move of Tao Pai Pai, guy, and it was like the coolest thing when it showed up. We only knew of the Kamehameha as the major key attack in the series at this point, so seeing another one was hype, and it was a contrasting color from the Kamehameha, so it had a menacing aura to it. It's just a straight shot beam. It was introduced so abruptly. Tao was dominating Goku in hand-to-hand combat, but as soon as Goku pulled out his Kamehameha, and more importantly ripped Tao's outfit, he was like, "I'm pissed, you're done," and fired off the Dodon Ray. It very much felt like his wrap it up move, since what kind of normal person could survive a beam of energy to the heart at this point in the series? For all intents and purposes, this should have worked. Tao went right for the vitals, and then took what he thought were the Dragon Balls, but Goku just so happened to have the 4-star ball in his shirt right by his heart, blocking the beam, and was stunned long enough where Tao assumed he was dead since he's a professional. Why would his target be alive, and why wouldn't all the Dragon Balls be together? He really got screwed over since this definitely should have worked, but I like the symbolism of Grandpa Gohan's ball protecting Goku from the ray, and we all know the story from here. Goku goes through Korin's challenge and gets strong enough to beat Tao, where now the Dodon Ray just burns a little and he can block it with his hands. Then Tao pulls out his other failed finisher, a bomb, which Goku promptly kicks back to him and supposedly kills Tao. However, we see it's actually a reversed failed finishing move, since Tao survives and returns as a cyborg. Though with power creep, his Dodon Ray now is just another beam at this point, and that's okay. It's ultimately just supposed to be like the standard Kamehameha. A good attack, but usually not the closer. You would need some sort of super Dodon Ray if you wanted to have that power. Then he created the Super Dodon Ray, which had a really cool tracking system to it, but yeah, Tien didn't even flinch when he was hit by it.
Tien screamed it away. That is one of the best Tien scenes from Dragon Ball. Tao, after cheating and scarring him, fires the Super Dodon Pa, and Tien doesn't even like beam cancel it. He just key eyes, and the sheer power Tien has compared to Tao disperses the Super Dodon Pa.
So in the end, even though Tao became laughably irrelevant, that original fight will always make us respect the Dodon Pa. Number 8. Light Grenade. Light Grenade is Piccolo's strongest move that he tried against Imperfect Cell during their second meetup. I like how he charges the light in his hands as he prepares a massive bullet of ki for this attack. Cell just casually walks towards Piccolo, so he's hoping he can punish Cell for his hubris if he's going to be an easy target. Piccolo gets a direct hit, Cell doesn't even flinch, and a portion of the island is missing afterwards. There's a bit of a fake out, but Piccolo isn't even buying that Cell's obliterated, and he's right. Cell emerges from the water and continues his walk until he reaches Piccolo. I love that Cell's response is to just deck Piccolo in the chin. No amazing powers needed. Light Grenade isn't an interesting part of Piccolo's history, since it's his strongest attack, but it was in a fight where he was outmatched, so it tends to get underrated compared to his other big attacks. Like, look at his special beam cannon, the Makankosapo. It beat the first enemy of Z. Or his Hellzone Grenade. It was in an evenly matched fight against 17. The opponent could not shrug off those attacks. And then in video games like the Budokai or Budokai Tenkaichi series, they both downgraded his Light Grenade as a weaker blast, with the Hellzone Grenade or Special Beam Cannon being his strongest super moves. It wasn't until the Raging Blast series that became his de facto ultimate, so even Dragon Ball Media was choosing other attacks as his best for a while.
I like that Piccolo had a couple of attacks themed after grenades. So it's like, yeah, the Lay Energy Blast should be really powerful, but like with the Energy Barrage with the Hellzone Grenade, it doesn't do anything. It's a big flashy move that just kinda happens. And that's disappointing, because like this could be a really cool finisher.
It's ultimately as non-lethal for him as something like the Masenko.
Piccolo Jr. did use the Masenko to kill a dog.
What?
When he was a baby.
Oh.
So, Masenko does have one successful kill, and it's against the dog.
Light Grenade was also the last major attack Piccolo did in the original series. After this, he had a filler fight with Cell Jr., forfeited against Shin, kinda fought Babidi if you consider that a fight, and then was just in a mentor role for Goten and Trunks for the rest of the Buu arc. So it was the end of the road for Piccolo until the series picked back up again years later. And this is not a bad attack to go out on. It's very fun to look at, it just suffered from being used against a villain who had a lot left in the tank. And hey, at least Cell had his own failed finishing move in response, where he blasts Piccolo point blank and throws him into the water. Don't worry, Piccolo's fine.
Also, the blast you're talking about where Cell snaps his neck and then blasts through the chest has an even funnier name in the English dub. So there's a couple variants from the different games, but the official one is see ya!
Terrific. Number 7, the Tamashii no Kikoho, aka the Spirit Tri-Beam. The Spirit Tri-Beam is specifically the Tri-Beam that Ten Shinhan used against Nappa. Already enraged by his best friend Chaozu giving up his life for nothing, and being beaten around by Nappa himself, Tien knew that he was done, but being the stand-up guy that he is, he's not going out without using the strongest version of his strongest attack, and one-handed no less, though that was out of necessity since he got his hand broken off earlier in the fight. The Kikoho is supposed to be done with both hands, so I've always wondered how you pull this one off. Putting all of his life into this Kikoho, he gets a direct hit on Nappa, but you know where this is going. He gets a slightly more damaging dust cloud that ends with Nappa okay.
You know what I think is really funny about his final Tri-Beam, Spirit Tri-Beam against Nappa? Tien has the ability to grow arms. He could have absolutely done a normal Tri-Beam. This isn't to dismiss Tien or the drama of the moment. Tien's one of my favorite characters, but it also means Tien could do a dual Tri-Beam. He could do a hexagon beam, a hex beam, making 2 Tri-Beams, one upside up, one upside down.
Anyway, after he completes the attack, Tien dies, and I'm sad. Though I feel a bit better about this one than I did with Chaozu, since Vegeta says that would have killed Nappa if he didn't react in time, so it doesn't feel as in vain as Chaozu's was. This death added to the hopelessness of the Saiyan fight. Yamcha and Chaozu dying already indicated that, but seeing another character who was prominent in previous arcs right after an arc where they were all happy and together really makes you notice how much more dire of a situation this is. For Tien, I feel this was the only time in the original run that his Kikoho did not do its intended purpose. Specifying intended purpose there, it was not always meant to kill for him. In its first appearance in the 22nd tournament, Tien hyped up this attack to be his end-all be-all move that disintegrates anything and uses life energy to be so strong, but he just uses it to destroy the ring so he could beat Goku, which really feels like a petty reason to use it considering the situations where he would have to dip into it in the future, but it did work, so I guess it was successful.
Tien's infamous in Dragon Ball for not catching up after the arc where he was the villain, and like you said, when he used it to destroy the arena, Goku couldn't fly. That was Tien's plan. Goku had to fall, and as a result, he had to land out of bounds because there's no more arena, and that was the only time it was successful because Tien did in fact win after Goku headbutt him and they both fell, and Goku hit a random truck, so he counted as out of bounds first. I still say it should have been a draw.
Its other major appearance may be Tien's most famous moment, where he uses the Shin Kikoho to hold back Semi-Perfect Cell before Goku can arrive, where he fires it continuously until he can't anymore. You could consider this a failed finishing move too, since it's only strong enough to stop Cell rather than damage him, but Tien went into that situation knowing that he'd only be a hindrance, so I would say this attack fulfilled its intended purpose this time around. Tien is one of my favorite characters, so I love this moment, but even if you're not a Tien fan, I feel you gotta respect him here.
Again, back to being pro Tien. The Tri-Beam wasn't actually even his answer to the Kamehameha. That was the Dodon Ray, but he refused to use it because that wasn't his technique. And just the way the Tri-Beam was showcased of being, like you said, like a move that drains the user's life force, just shows how powerful Tien actually is, that his life energy could be used so much to stop Semi-Perfect Cell, who only existed for such a short amount of time because Toriyama's editor said, he's too ugly, you have to put something cooler looking in there. And then Toriyama said, fine.
It's a shame the Kikoho never truly beat an opponent in the series' original run. It was definitely Tien's strongest attack, but it suffered from being too powerful for a standard tournament, but not strong enough for the power creep of Z. Number 6, the Kienzan, aka Destructo Disc. The Kienzan's a bit different from how other finishing moves failed on this list. Instead of engulfing the enemy in a beam of light or creating a dust cloud to fake us out if they're okay or just appear dead, the Kienzan is the kill move that just gets dodged at the right time. Krillin creates a buzzsaw of ki and throws it. Since it cuts through conceivably anything, he only throws it at the most evil of foes. He's not messing around when he takes this out, and he was pretty close to ending a threat in nearly every arc of Z because of it. Vegeta jumps out of the way pretty nonchalantly in the Saiyan arc, and Frieza gets part of his tail cut off by the Kienzan, showing that if Krillin had a better angle, it indeed can cut through aliens of unknown origins.
Yeah, the Destructo Disc is an insanely powerful move. When it first debuted against Nappa, Nappa was set to tank it. Like, he was ready to just tank it, and Vegeta warned him, dodge. And that's why Nappa didn't get killed immediately immediately by the Destructo Disc. This could have killed Nappa. Vegeta made that very clear because he did not give Nappa any advice at all other than make it quick. I want to get on with the killing. And then Nappa dodged it, and that's when Nappa's like, oh, I gotta kill this guy now. And then Goku showed up. There's not a lot of slashing attacks in Dragon Ball Z, so having a technique that's specifically for slicing, really cool, and it only cuts off tails because cutting off regular limbs would be a little too gruesome for the heroes to do to villains unless they can regenerate. Looking at you, Cell.
The Cell arc gave Krillin a use of the Kienzan in an anime-only scene, and it was the first time he had a direct hit with it. However, Cell just no-sells it and stands there looking at his hands, completely unfazed by the buzzsaw of energy hitting him, and then the disc just dissipates. I know Krillin couldn't just end Cell right there, but he got ripped off here. Actually, he got more ripped off by everyone else copying his technique without crediting him. The Kienzan is known as Krillin's signature move, but other characters just straight up use it with better results. I can forgive Cell for using it since that's his gimmick, and 18 using it is cute since that's his wife, but Frieza just pulling out his trademark death saucers is blatant plagiarism. The technique that took part in ending the Frieza arc is essentially Krillin's, but you won't hear him getting a thank you.
Then Vegeta copied the technique to cut Gohan's tail off. Everyone just steals this technique from Krillin. Goku steals this technique from Krillin.
At the end of the day, this attack may have not had the kill rate that Krillin was looking for, but if the mere existence of it makes enemies take it seriously and even copy it, he's doing the job right. Number 5. Final Flash. I feel like Final Flash has the biggest dichotomy of power compared to how much it actually accomplished of moves on this list. It's Vegeta's ultimate attack that's going to prove he can kill the strongest being in the universe. It has the capacity to destroy the planet, and it even does the DBZ trope of charging for half the episode. Like he really savors that charge before firing the giant beam of energy. Even Cell reacts like this was stronger than he was prepared for, but when the dust clears, Cell may have been almost cut in half, but he just laughs it off and immediately regenerates.
Cell went, oh, this would be a problem if I couldn't just heal myself, which again goes back to the whole regeneration is stupid. I would much rather have had that attack done nothing and Cell stay unscathed than Cell go, oh, that hurt. I'm not hurt anymore.
Vegeta definitely deserved to be humbled, but like, wow, no damage? It didn't matter unless he hit all of Cell because of the regeneration. Then Vegeta proceeds to get batted around by Cell without him using the arm that Vegeta initially blew off. So even if Cell couldn't regenerate, Vegeta was losing after his Final Flash regardless. What made this attack feel a lot less useful in retrospect to me is how it never really appeared after this, yet it was always Super Vegeta's ultimate attack in video games, so I unintentionally gaslit myself into thinking he used it all the time with success. However, after the Cell fight, Vegeta never uses Final Flash in the manga again, and only uses it in 2 more scenes in the Z anime. One time was against a Cell Jr., and another time was as Majin Vegeta versus Goku. But as soon as you leave the original source material, Final Flash is used a lot more generously, and is the basis for some of his other forms' ultimate attacks.
Vegeta uses it in Super against Vegeta to fight the Lava Spit. A beam struggle with Magma. That was really cool. I like that. Despite the Gallic Gun being his Kamehameha, the Final Flash becomes his standard energy blast. When Gogeta is about to use his energy blast, it's not Gallic Gun Kamehameha, it's the final Kamehameha. Or I said Gogeta. Vegeta also uses it. That's his signature move.
Don't forget that the fusions also combine the Kamehameha with Vegeta's Big Bang attack, which I actually think is underrated at this point. If anything, I just think the Big Bang attack deserved more credit as a finishing move for him. That one killed in its introduction, and looks good when combined with the Kamehameha. Number 4, the Mafuba, aka the Evil Containment Wave. The Mafuba is extremely powerful, but it doesn't kill. In fact, it's more meant to be that last resort when your other offensive finishing moves won't work. It was first used by Master Mutaito, the teacher of Master Roshi and the Crane Hermit, to defeat Piccolo Daimao. It's a spiraling attack that no being can escape from, but it requires a lot of stamina, so you have to end the attack quickly. In order to do that, just take any container with a lid, force the target into it, close it with a special demon seal, and boom bam, they can't escape for eternity. And literally any container. Mutaito used a Denchi jar, which is a rice cooker, with little kitties on it. I appreciate how even in the serious parts of Dragon Ball, Toriyama manages to find a way to get some humor in there.
There are a lot of other anime that have sealing techniques, like this creature has been sealed for 1,000 years, and that seal is breaking. Whereas Dragon Ball Z, it's like, yeah, this seal will hold up forever unless someone messes with it externally, because King Piccolo only got released because Pilaf pulled the sticker off the rice cooker.
However, due to the strain it puts on the body, the user likely won't survive after doing this attack with or without fail, and unfortunately, as you could guess by the topic of this list, the attack fails a few times. But fortunately, the series liked this attack enough where they wanted to use it more, so they did away with the whole character dying after using it, so they could show it off more and not have to kill off a character every time. Though the first time it doesn't work, we still had the stakes, so when Master Roshi uses it after King Piccolo was freed, Roshi misaims hitting the rice cooker, then dies, Piccolo got to restore his youth and power, and then all hell breaks loose for a bit.
The reason Roshi used the rice cooker is because King Piccolo had trauma about the rice cooker. He was trying to psych him out, and it worked. King Piccolo started running as soon as he saw the rice cooker. If it weren't for the fact that Roshi's shoulder got damaged in the fight, he would have been sealed. He survived that by a fluke.
Next option, Tien took a crack at practicing the Mafuba for hours, but then life took a crack at the Denchi jar and it was broken, so Tien abandoned the plan before he could use it on Piccolo. However, the anime gave him more of a chance, where he had the jar not broken with him, but Piccolo's minion Drum blocks the attack to get captured instead, and then Piccolo immediately destroys the jar to avoid continuity issues. So it worked, but it didn't hit the person he was looking for. And by person, I mean Demon/Mazuko. The final time we saw the Mafuba in the original series was in the 23rd tournament, when Kami in Disguise tried using it against Piccolo Jr. This time though, it didn't even hit a target. Piccolo countered it with the Mafuba Reflection, a very specific move that just throws the wave back at the user. Honestly, I love this. It would make sense that the reincarnation of Piccolo, whose only fear was this move that seals him away forever, would learn a move that has the sole purpose of reflecting that technique that he's afraid of. The Mafuba was seen again in Dragon Ball Super as a way to seal Zamasu, and after all the practice Goku did on Turtle for comedic effect, he forgets the sealing paper when they travel to the future, and it ultimately fails. However, I do like that when Trunks tries it out, as soon as Zamasu is hit with the wave, he immediately realizes that he's screwed. He's like, oh my god, this is horrible. He escaped the urn since it's useless without the seal, but I like that he indirectly respected it. And the manga had a similar scenario where Goku does it instead, but he had the wrong tag. And its final appearance was in the Tournament of Power, when they essentially had the Roshi episode, where he just did all of his classic techniques for the fan service, including the Mafuba, but it was actually successful here, and I'm all in for this episode. Who doesn't love when they let Roshi be cool? Number 3, Majin Vegeta's final explosion. This is like a top 5 moment in the series for me. I love what leads up to this, I love how it breaks down, I don't even mind that it amounted to nothing in the end. I feel like this was the best way to close out Vegeta's story, even if it was just a temporary end. As far as the attack goes, it's a self-sacrifice, where Vegeta uses all of his life essence to create an explosion so grand that Majin Buu would be too disintegrated to regenerate, but in the end, the explosion just simply makes Buu take slightly longer to recover, and then it's like nothing happens, and Vegeta dies in the process, so it really fails. But I like the narrative behind why this was happening. As you probably know, Vegeta was a villain in the first 2 arcs of Z, and he did get punished for his actions at the end by ultimately dying without avenging the Saiyans against Frieza, and it was peak writing for his character. But with everyone getting revived after that, he was back as a neutral anti-hero party in the Cell arc. He let Cell attain his perfect form, dooming the world when his final flash failed, but outside of having his pride damaged, I feel like Vegeta did not suffer repercussions like he did against Frieza. He said he would never fight again after seeing Kakarot die due to Cell, but I always wanted more from Vegeta's arc here. However, the payoff in the Majin Vegeta part of the Buu arc invested me in his story again. Vegeta essentially had a midlife crisis for a Saiyan. He saw his rival get stronger than him, and he felt he went soft because he started a family and liked it. So he let himself get partially taken over by Babidi for the power, kills some people, gets in a fight with Goku, and this is a top fight in the series, I know a lot of it is anime only, and indirectly helps a new evil, Majin Buu, get unleashed, similar to him helping Cell attain his perfect form. However, instead of wanting to kill Buu to prove his strength like with Cell, Vegeta feels he has to kill Boo since he realized that he messed up in this scenario by putting his petty rivalry above the people and planet he grew to love. After seeing that normal fighting can't defeat Boo's invincible body, he converts his life force to energy so he can create an explosion that engulfs the entire area, and I love every facet of this sequence. First, him asking Piccolo if he'll see Kakarot in Otherworld, and Piccolo breaks it to him that he's going to hell because of his history, so Vegeta accepts it. He got off easy with his previous near-death experiences, but now that he's developed as a character, he comes to terms that his past actions were unforgivable. Then the sparkles that surround him and Boo to signify the finality of this attack are wonderfully animated. I like how Boo is even like, "Oh, Boo also might be screwed." And I love Vegeta's speech that comes with it, where we learn he really does love his family, and even you, Kakarot. I'm also a sucker for the original English dub line of, "I'm going to crush you and throw you into the wind." And of course, the explosion looks nice. It's pretty. The aftermath was also unique, since Vegeta's body was now ash since he used up all of his life force. I was confused as a kid since I thought he turned to stone, and I was like, where's Deborah? But now I get it. Still, it's unique to this attack. I was also kinda sad at the time because the final imprint of his body had the Majin M on his forehead still, and I was like, that's not how Vegeta should be remembered. A lot of people wanted this to be the end of Boo, and I get that, but I feel it would have been finishing the arc too quickly. Obviously, Toriyama could have introduced more villains if Boo ended that way, but there would have been plot lines that were cut off too abruptly. This was really to show Vegeta's true face turn and becoming selfless, so it was more about the act rather than the result. It's funny how Boo recovers and just starts doing Boo things again as if nothing happened. He had no investment in Vegeta's story, so it makes sense. It was just another dude in the way for Boo.
I want to say my favorite thing about the final explosion. The final explosion, of all of the moves we've talked about so far, has the highest success rate of defeating someone because it was used twice in its entirety. The first time was against Boo and it failed. The second time was against God of Destruction Toph, and Vegeta didn't die from it because of his own resilient Super Saiyan mode, but it did knock Toph out of the arena.
Anyway, great attack, great scene, happy Vegeta eventually got rewarded for this. Number 2, the angry Kamehameha. This is a very iconic moment that is so fun to quote, and I almost forgot it counted as a failed finisher. The Goku vs. Frieza fight was a marathon. We all know the important parts, and the period on the fight was after being cut in half by his Nakienzan, Frieza was going to be left to die on an exploding planet. Goku gives him some ki so he can float around and leave, since Goku can just do that now, and instead of taking the L, Frieza uses some of that energy to attempt to kill Goku, so Goku does the only thing he can in response and blasts him with more energy and calls him an idiot. And all things considered, this should have killed Frieza, but we needed him to be the fake-out villain in the next arc, so he barely survives and gets turned into a cyborg, where he gets killed for real this time. Trunks may have gotten the kill, but I give Goku credit for the W. Frieza got so lucky that enough of his vitals were working after a beam of pure rage and a planet explosion, and that he was recovered in time to be cyberized. He seemed like he had minutes of life left at that point. But ignoring Frieza's luck, I love how this is just the Goku is pissed move. He stopped the fight because he knew he won, gave Frieza a few chances to just leave, and yeah, Frieza just doesn't. Goku does the attack one-handed, which always looks cool, and despite being a generic-looking beam, I feel what he yells when doing it makes it so iconic. In Japanese, it's Bakayaro, which basically means an aggressive way of saying idiot, maybe add a swear word in there. And the dub line that has stuck with me forever is, "You fool!" Something about just calling someone a fool after doing everything to prevent this outcome feels like the perfect scold. I love the Kai dub, and I'm glad they kept that line in. The scolding continues with Goku's facial expression, where he just looks kinda sad afterwards, like this should not have been the outcome and he's disappointed. As for the name of this attack, I never considered it to have one in the past. I just thought it was a generic full power energy wave or something like that. But the video games classify it as the angry Kamehameha, even though he never says Kamehameha during it and it's a different color. But maybe that's just what the rage and Super Saiyan power does to it. He's definitely angry, so I know where that comes from.
The angry Kamehameha is a fantastic move because it doesn't need to be a Kamehameha, but they allowed the Kamehameha to finally be a finishing move in a variant, kind of like with Gohan's one-handed Kamehameha later on, which is actually a really nice parallel.
In the end, I just tend to call these attacks the "you Goku Fool Beams, but no matter what we settle on, we can all agree that this blast should have killed Frieza if the story didn't have a more humiliating plan for him. For number 1, we went with the attack that has the highest ceiling in terms of power, but took a long time for it to deal a finishing blow in canon. Number 1, the Genki Dama, aka the Spirit Bomb. The Spirit Bomb might be Goku's most iconic attack after the Kamehameha. It's his strongest move that can only be used by the pure of heart, and people love imitating the pose. He puts his hands in the air, collects ki from living things, and then gets a ball of varying sizes depending on how much ki he gets. It's essentially drink cup sizes. Small in the Saiyan Saga when he just gets some Earth energy, medium against Frieza when he gets energy from the whole galaxy and has to use 2 hands to throw it, and large against Buu where all the beings of the universe actively give him energy by raising their hands in response. The trade-off for having such a powerful attack is Goku has to leave himself wide open while he collects the energy, so his friends have to cover for him so no one disturbs him. However, that trade-off isn't great when the attack doesn't work. 2 out of the 3 times it's used in canon, it doesn't finish off the opponent, and they were pretty active after it hit them. The first time against Vegeta, it launches him, which is probably my favorite effect of the Spirit Bomb against its target, though for the big finisher attack, sure it hurts Vegeta a lot, but eventually lands back down to Earth and only fakes out that he's unconscious, so against a bunch of injured fighters, he's still able to fight back on an even level. It made the Spirit Bomb just feel like another strong attack rather than a finale, but that's okay. Goku probably didn't realize how much ki it needs, and I'm sure it will succeed next time. Then next time, it failed against Frieza, where Goku takes more time to make it bigger. Frieza appears to be overwhelmed by it, and when we have a moment of peace, Frieza surprises us by coming out of nowhere angrier than he was before, and then we get Super Saiyan. It was a great fake out, but it wasn't looking good for the Spirit Bomb at this point. If anything, these 2 fights made it feel more like the precursor to the finale, since it does a lot of damage to lead to the final stretch of the battle.
Which, to be fair, the Spirit Bomb's ability is dependent upon the energy it can absorb, so maybe if there were still Namekians or other living creatures alive, the Spirit Bomb might have actually successfully killed Frieza. We cannot know because there just simply wasn't enough life energy for Goku to borrow.
Finally though, at the end of Z against the last enemy, Kid Buu, we got the best Spirit Bomb we could ever ask for. Goku calls for the help of everyone in the universe, and I love all the cameos of everyone raising their hands to help. See my best filler list for my full thoughts there, since I could go on all day about the many characters the anime added from Goku's journey to assist. I'm just a sucker for a good boss rush of allies, and what really makes the Spirit Bomb so iconic is everyone raising their hands in response to lend energy, something only established during this Spirit Bomb. Though what still cements the Spirit Bomb as the number 1 for this topic is this one almost failed too. Buu started pushing it back and looked like he would have been successful if Goku's energy wasn't restored. Still, to have the Spirit Bomb triumph at the end of the series was a great moment. Looking back, I thought the Spirit Bomb succeeded more in Z than it actually did. However, what unintentionally misled me was in 3 of the movies in a row, Goku used the Spirit Bomb with success. It worked in World's Strongest, Tree of Might, and Lord Slug. The movie crew just defaulted to using the Spirit Bomb to close out the movies until they started finding other ways for Goku to win in later movies, plus that thing they did in the Android 13 movie with it.
But then the next big use is in GT against, well, Baby makes a dark version with his Revenge Death Ball, which also borrows the power of all of his servants, and that fails to kill Goku. So we have Evil Spirit Bomb that doesn't work too. And then Goku uses again Omega Shenron and goes into this state that the wiki refers to as Goku's transformation, where he just becomes immune to damage. It's not explained. It's literally called is an unexplained transformation of Goku's. Yeah, and then it's used again by Goku in the Tournament of Power, which I think is the best showing of it. Not mechanically, but like how it's used, because he's borrowing the power of all of the fighters. And a small detail I like is that Shin, Beerus, and Whis don't contribute because that would be interfering in the tournament, and they're not allowed to do that. And also that Vegeta refused to give him strength, which means that Goku possibly could have achieved Ultra Instinct even faster. And then related to that, I did like how absorbing the Spirit Bomb so it didn't kill him was what allowed him to transcend into Ultra Instinct when his mind went totally blank. The Spirit Bomb's a really cool move, and I think it should have been better than it was, but I just like it. I think a literal power of the people grenade forming above, because we were talking about the delayed blast attacks. Like, this is the ultimate delayed blast attack.
So if you count the movies, it has a successful record, but we weren't. GT gave it another win, but Super also gave it another shortcoming, so it still maintains its general rate of success adding in the post-Z content. However, its build-up in Z compared to the surprising endurance of its opponents ultimately made it our immediate pick for the top failed finisher in the Dragon Ball series. Now, what did you think? Did all these moves successfully fail at wrapping up a fight, or were we harsher on them than their opponents? And what are some of your favorite moves in Dragon Ball that had trouble closing out matches? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and we will see you in the next video.